Hello, welcome to another Rouse Rex video. So I'm going to take the alternator off on the Audi A6 C4. I'm going to send it off to a company to have it tested, just to ensure, because I was under the impression that it was overcharging. Well, it came back and it was fine. It was perfectly within tolerance. So I decided that I would obviously put it back on again. By the way, the alternator was charging, or when I tested it, it was charging at 14 volts, which I thought was a bit high. And when I had it tested, he said it was 15 volts. For a 12 volt system, I thought was a little bit over the threshold, as they say. But no, he said that was fine. So as I say, and as you can see, I started to put it back on again. So another thing I like to, or started to do more of is when I'm putting the nuts and bolts back together and so on, I have a tendency to put a bit of grease on the bolts just to give them a bit of lubrication as I'm putting them like a steel bolt into a aluminium casing or anything like that. Just that little bit of lubrication just helps. It's actually not a bad job to do, to be honest with you. The alternator on the Audi A6 C4 2.5 TDI, it's very accessible. It doesn't look particularly accessible, but it is. Once you get all the engine cover off, you can see a lot more. And of course, I did it outside the front of the house, so there's plenty of light and so on. Just be careful of the light. I don't know if it would affect anyone, but I'm going to start shining my torch down in between the radiator and the engine, essentially. So I'm trying to re-tension the alternator belt, and as you can see, I'm pushing down using my bar. It was a little bit awkward, but it went on fairly easily. And this very similar to, there you go, there's my light. So I think what I did was actually drop something down there. So it's the age-old thing, you drop it and you think, oh. Fortunately, I've got my magnet. You see, that's my magnet, and I managed to retrieve, I think it was a spanner actually, what I dropped. So yeah, got that out, which is handy. Yeah, I've seen this type of tensioner on a Mercedes, so it's very similar. Like Mercedes Sprinter actually. So and I'm sure there's other, like the OM606 engines have a similar kind of belt tensioning system, where you put the you've got like a spring and like a pivoting bracket with a pulley on it, and then you push down on the spring. So on goes the belt cover, the big engine cover that covers the engine. For those of you that know this vehicle, that broke on this, so I don't have it anymore. So, but yeah, that engine cover there stops you kind of putting your fingers near the belt, which is quite handy. Another testament to how great these engines are, and the build quality of these Audis, is that this has done 337,000 miles. It's all original. The engine and gearbox have never been split. It's original clutch, and it's just incredible. How strong it is, and just everything comes apart nicely. It goes back together nicely, and I think it's one of those scenarios that I don't think a car like this would ever be built again. So part of what made me have a feeling that it was overcharging, or what I kept checking, was that essentially what was happening was it actually cooked about 2 batteries over a period of probably 18 months, I would say, something like that. And I was thinking, why on earth was it doing that? And anyway, when I put the batteries on, or put one battery on, because the AA I think did the other one, I noticed that when you run it up, that the battery terminal, the positive battery terminal, was really hot, just at the end. And I thought, which was making me think, well, maybe that's why it's getting warm. But anyway, subsequently, it was because it was there was a high resistance within the cable. So that battery cable that I'm mucking about with there, that was what the problem was the high resistance. It was all corroded, and you wouldn't think it would corrode because it's inside the car, but of course, it obviously where it gets maybe a bit warmer and colder, and over time it just did. And and that was causing a big problem, to be honest with you. I say a big problem, it was just an area of concern, really. And I didn't want it to cook another battery, because of course, as we all know, batteries can be a bit expensive, and especially if it happens, and it will never happen when you want it to, of course. It'll always happen when you're nowhere sort of near the vehicle, or it's just when you don't want it to happen, as with all these types of breakdowns. So for those of you that don't know, to gain access to the battery on the Audi A6 C4, there's two screws that screw the rear seat base down, and they're located opposite the front seat. So essentially you'd look in where the footwell is on the back footwells, and there's two screws, and you undo those and it just basically comes out. Such a great car to work on, to be honest with you, because there's so much easement with it. It seems like things have been thought about, which I like about that. You can also see how much of an issue it was to try and get the old battery terminal and battery cable plastic sheathing off. It was so hard, and the plastic was just really hard to cut, and it was so kind of stiff, so it was completely knackered, to be fair. And I was struggling to cut the plastic, and looking at it thinking, how am I going to do it? In the end, I think I just cut it off, because it was just, I was trying to I was looking into the fact of whether I could clean it up, maybe use a bit of because in the past, when I've been doing electrical problems on something, on a vehicle, the wires, when they go all kind of black in colour, and when they go like that, you can't solder them very well. So I found it that if you can sometimes clean those off with like a bit of sandpaper or something like that, and it makes a big difference to when you do actually come to solder it, which is makes life a bit easier, of course. And it's the age-old thing, of course. Here we are. I've decided that I'm going to cut it off now with my bolt croppers, and that took quite a bit of cutting, to be honest with you, because of course a bolt cropper is ideal for something that's hard, but when it comes to like a plastic, not plastic, like a movable bit of metal, like a bit of copper wire like this it was quite difficult to cut. But one thing I would say, and I'm sure you've all had this problem, but when you start a job and you think, right, I'll do this, do that, and then you forget a tool and you have to get up, go and get it, and it's just it's incredible how much that time that does put on a job, I think. But yeah, so that's why apologies for me just getting up. I'm obviously going off to get other bits and bobs and find tools that I need for the job, essentially. So as you can see, I managed to cut the terminals off, and stripped them back so that they're all the clean wire was all nice and available for soldering. And what I ended up doing, I didn't bother using because I was going to use cut up a set of jump leads, and I didn't really fancy doing that. So I decided to have a little look in the garage, and I managed to find a link, a 24 volt battery link, or battery cable, which was basically brand new. And there was two, because it was obviously meant for the job, because there was two bits I had, and both perfectly the right size. So I thought, well, that was handy. So anyway, managed to solder them on, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing this in the front outside the front, and I'm just doing it with what facilities and tools that I had available to me, out the back of my van. There's a new link, all just intertwined together, and all chopped back, ready to go on, and ready for me to solder it. And as you can see, I'm just filling my soldering iron up with some more gas. So the simplest way was to, well, I found, was to heat the wire up and then get rid of the flame and then feed in the solder, and that was how I found it was easiest to connect them together, essentially. Just be mindful that now I'm going to do the soldering, that there's might be some flashing images on your screen. So now that I've completed the soldering, obviously on the video I'm still doing it, but now I can confirm that it's made a big difference to it. Actually, it starts really well, and I don't know if you ever noticed that sometimes if you have like sort of odd little electrical faults or things that go wrong on your car, then it actually can be attributed to quite a lot of times to the battery. So this is what I found, but yeah, it's made a massive difference to it. And of course, once I'd soldered all the wires on there, it was just perfect. There wasn't any heat or anything like that, so it's come up really well. The other thing I didn't show either was I used amalgamating tape and then insulating tape over the amalgamating tape just to seal it all up, because I didn't have any heat shrinks, unfortunately. Thanks for watching, and like, subscribe, and the next one to follow along from this will be me repairing the wings. I'm going to weld them up and hopefully straighten, get the profile correct, and paint them as well, and that'd be fantastic.